Good day, lovely people. This is Professor Matt, and welcome to a Liverpool specific season update here at the Too Many Guys Sports Network, right? Because we have officially rebranded. Today is Thursday, the 14th of August, which means we are literally just 24 hours out from the start of the Premier League season, where my club, Liverpool, the defending champions, kick off against Bournemouth at Anfield. It's been a bit since I've last recorded one of these. The last time I did this was just as the transfer window was opening, so early June. And by that point, we had already brought in Frimpong, Kirkez, and Florian Wirtz, much to my surprise. And I believe we had sold Kwanzaa to Leverkusen. But if you haven't been paying attention, we did sell Kwanzaa to Leverkusen. And I said, I think we needed, a striker as things turned out because of the unfortunate passing of Diego Jota. We kind of need two. Right. And I said, depending on, other moves we made, maybe a wing forward, right, an additional center back, right, because Kwanzaa was leaving, etc. So quite a bit's happened since then. Like I said, the unfortunate passing of Diego Jota, who I believe he was going to stay one more season. But obviously things have changed. Right. And right, out is Luis Diaz off to Bayern Munich for a pretty good fee, 75, potentially up to 80 with add-ons. Right. Tyler Morton for what it's worth. Uh, right. And it looks like Harvey Elliott and Costas Tsimikas are going to be on the way out too. In terms of incomings, well, I mentioned the other three. I can, Hugo Ekitike, the striker from Frankfurt, which I mentioned in that last video as one of I think schematically the best system fit of all of the strikers available. Right. He's come in, a pretty hefty fee, by the way. And it looks like, well, oh, and we did sign a center back, a young Italian, Leone from Parma, who I think I may have mentioned in the last video. I definitely mentioned his name, I think, when I was on with the two mics for the season, the sort of longer pre-season preview episode. Uh he's 19, he's one for the future. I'll talk a little bit about him in a second. Right, and it looks like we're very close to signing Mark Gahey. And we hope, anyway, that a striker, pretty important one, might be incoming. But before we get to that, let's recap because we have played a competitive match. Last Sunday we lost the Community Shield to Crystal Palace on penalties. Final score ended 2-2. Uh, it was kind of a mixed bag. If I gotta be totally honest, there was some good, and the good was Hugo Ekitike. Like I said, I get the sense that a quote unquote Arne Slot striker is sort of in the vein of Bobby Firmino, and I got to keep it real. Hugo Ekitike, in the about hour that he played, did his best Bobby Firmino impersonation. He was brilliant. Florian Wirtz, uh, with the assist on the first goal. We haven't had a 10 like this in a long time since really Felipe Coutinho. Uh, and Dominic Szoboszlai, who, as far as I'm concerned, has been our best player during the preseason, looked brilliant in sort of a new kind of role for him. I think you're still going to see him in the 10 this year. You may see him even wide right, wide left, particularly when Salah goes away on AFCON duty in January. So, that's something. But he's also been playing mainly in the double pivot as one of the more defensive-minded midfielders. And I thought he was great. Uh, but there were some bad defensive lapses. Silly penalty given up by Van Dijk, which led to the first goal. And the second goal, I mean, it was Ismail Assar. And if there's a given in this universe, Ismail Assar will score a goal against Liverpool. At least one in a given season. He is our nemesis. Right. But the second goal from Sar, pretty much that's on Milos Kerkez. Milos Kerkez thought he was fouled and straight up just gave up on the action. And so that's something that's a bit nervy because hopefully these are mistakes. Hey, it's the community shield, get it out of your goddamn system now. Uh as opposed to during an actual game. Right. So, I mean, I guess that's good, but we are we are starting two new fullbacks. By the way, the second goal was scored by Frimpong. He did not he had no he didn't mean to score that goal. That was a cross. But it went in the opposite corner. Beautiful goal. I thought he played well. He does track back. Unlike Trent, he does want to defend. Is he a naturally defensive fullback? Hell no. But he's pacey, and that recovery pace, I think, is how this is going to kind of work. And before people are like, well, blah, 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 cheat code, look, City got away with that from their right back, for eons, right? Walker isn't a particularly good defensive fullback. He's just freaking fast. So that's how we're going to run it. And again, like we saw last year, only one of the fullbacks is really going to bomb forward. The strategy is one goes forward, one kind of chills at the midway line, and they sort of rotate throughout the match situationally. I thought Frimpong played pretty well. I thought Kirkes played pretty well too, but he had that lapse. And right, with Joe Gomez only now today returning from training, so I doubt he even makes bench tomorrow. Center back depth, it's kind of worrying, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other thing that was really worrying or is worrying is Mo Salah apparently has forgotten to be able to take penalties. He missed one in the last preseason match he started against Athletic Bilbao, and oh man, he just skived the one on Sunday. Again, I hope that he is just getting this out of the system because usually the thing with Mo is he'll miss two like penalties in a row and then make the next 15. He every now and again he goes through these periods where I don't know what's going on. Uh so we'll see how that goes. But that was an awful penalty. Awful penalty. Uh so let's very quickly talk about potential, moves to be made uh in the remainder of the transfer window, and then I'll give you just a general sense of how I think the club's going to do this season. Uh I'll start with I think the least important area of need, and that is, winger. Right. We did sell Luis Diaz. Have we replaced Luis Diaz? No, not really. But we still have Cody Gakpo, who's, at times last season outplayed Diaz. People forget Diaz had a really great start of the season and a really great end of the season, but the middle was shaky. He was the invisible man there from about like early December to past Valentine's Day. So we still have Gakpo there. We have this 16-year-old kid, Rio, who we fleeced from Chelsea, and he's been a revelation. Outside of Sabazla, I think he's been our best player during the preseason. He looks good. He looks real good, but he's also 16. And right, you don't want to force the issue there. Uh, and then right, there's the right side where it looks like we're going to sell Chiesa, but I'm not certain about that. We still have me and Cam's boy, Ben Doak, who's looked half decent in preseason, right? I mean, he hasn't wowed, but he also hasn't like lit the world on fire. He hasn't, face planted either. I think one of Elliott, Chiesa, and Doak are going to stay. Uh, I think Elliott, because we could probably get the biggest fee, and probably Chiesa are the ones that will vacate, which means Ben Doak will be the understudy there. But I'm not sure. I mean, I think there's a universe where one of those three stay. I put my money on Ben Doak, but it might be Chiesa, right? I mean, his issue last season was he was coming back from a potentially career-ending injury and adapting to life in, English football. So I'm not certain. I'm not certain about that. There's been murmurs that we're potentially looking at Malik Fofana, who can play both left and right, by the way. Uh, I don't think that deal gets done before the summer transfer window closes. That may be something we do in January. Like, I think the way that we're going to play this is let's see how things go and take it from there, right? Because, Verts can technically play out left. Sabazalai can play both left and right if need be. Ditto Curtis Jones. We have guys that can fill those spaces, but having another nailed on senior winger would be nice. But I don't think you're going to see a move. I'd be very surprised if you see an incoming during this summer window. Right. I think the second, not in terms of importance, I'll talk about this, but the second order of business that needs to be addressed is center back depth. And like I said, we sold Kwanzaa, which I didn't really have a problem with. I probably would have kept him, but so you sell him and you haven't really replaced him. And, the last time we won the league, we sold Dejan Lovren to the Russians for a lot of money. And we didn't bring anyone in. And Klopp was like, "Oh, we have this kid, Billy. Remember Billy the Kid Clemenio, that guy? Right? I don't know where the hell he is now. But we went to the season with three center backs with Van Dijk, uh, Joe Matip, and Joe Gomez. And quite literally, in the course of a month and a half, all three of them suffered season-ending injuries. And at the end of that season, we were forced to play the likes of Reese Williams, Nat Phillips, granted cult hero Nat Phillips, but Nat Phillips, and freaking Ozan Kabak. And right, our title defense got completely derailed because of we didn't the failure to replace a senior center back. I don't want to see that happen again. It looks like, however, we are addressing that. Like I said, we brought in this kid, Leone from Parma, who I watched, I think, twice last season. See, started both of the matches against Napoli because that's my team in Serie A, and that's really the only Italian football I do watch. Right. So he looks good. He's for a 19-year-old. He reads the game well. He's really good at the ball with his feet, which I think that's a big plus for this system. And he's got some physicality. He has the height. He needs to fill out his body though. He's 100, as Mike was saying independently in the chat. He's 170 pounds at 6'5". Like, he needs to bulk up. And right, the transition from the Italian league to England it's not easy. The pace is a lot slower in Italy. Right, although he's surprisingly fast, I'll say that. And right, the English game is more physical at this point. So, I mean, he's one for the future. I'm really glad, and I think the price tag was worth it. But he is at best fifth choice, and I'll be honest, he may not even be fifth choice. That may be Nalo, who's been in the youth system now for a couple years. We saw him not just in preseason, but also in some of the domestic cups, or the early rounds of the domestic cups last year. He's one for the future, right? Because Virgil van Dijk, there's 2 years and he's gone. So, finding a potential long-term Van Dijk replacement is a good thing, not a bad thing. Right. So, I mean, that helps, but that's not an answer. Potentially bringing in Mark Gahey, and it looks like that deal is close. That is an answer, right? I've always been someone saying you need five center backs, but I think four and three really freaking good ones, and really, four good ones when Joe Gomez is healthy, because that is his problem. Uh, I think he can get away with that, and Gahey would represent an upgrade over Kwanzaa. I like Kwanzaa, but look, Mark Gahey is a better center back, and I believe a better fit in terms of this system because he is one of the best center backs in the league in terms of playing out right and in possession. He's really, really good at that. He's a little bit on the small side, but he's still extremely physical. He reads the game very well. And if let's say that, you know, you rotate out Van Dyke, and I've been saying this, like he's getting old. He doesn't need to play every goddamn match. Right. And if you have Gahey and Kanate in there, I feel a lot better about that because Gahey has been a captain at Crystal Palace. He leads from the back. You see these attributes when he plays for England as well. And by the way, I don't think a move to Liverpool affects his standing in the English national team at all because let's be real, he's probably England's best center back at the moment, regardless of playing time. And he'll get playing time. Or God forbid Virgil van Dijk gets injured. You see where I'm going with this? Him next to a Kanate who, look, Kanate is great, but he's not a leader. He's not the brains behind the operation. Ditto Joe Gomez. I feel a lot better about that equation. So if we can get Gahey through the door, look, is this perfect? No, I'd love, maybe an additional senior center back, right? Because of Gomez's injury history, Van Dijk's getting older, etc. But we're in a better position than we were yesterday, right? Where, if God forbid one of either Van Dijk or Kanate get hurt, you're looking at Wataru Endo as, your starting center back. Endo might be our fifth choice center back, by the way. Right. And look, I love Endo, but that's not sustainable in no way, shape, or form. Right. We're in better position than we were yesterday, and we're a way better position than we were back in 2020, 2021, where we did not have any senior cover. We went into that season with three center backs, two of which in Gomez and Matip were injury prone. And then we all know what happened to VVD, fuck you, Jordan Pickford, etc. So, center back, it looks like we're moving and we've secured one for the future, and we're on the precipice of securing one for the here, both the future and the now. But now we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Uh, it's no secret that Liverpool want Alexander Isak. I think he was our number one target at the beginning of the summer. Not that we weren't going to go in on Igor Ekitike. I think Ekitike was the second choice. And if Isak told us, okay, I'm cool at Newcastle, I think we just would have went for Ekitike and that would have been the end of it. But like I said, Diego Jota, unfortunate passing. We were always going to sell Darwin Nunez, and apologies. We sold Darwin Nunez, Saudi Arabia for 50 mil. That's, I think, fair. Bringing in another striker was essential. And here's the thing. We approached Isak and he didn't say, nah, man, I'm cool at Newcastle. He said, come and get me. So we have a full-blown transfer saga, drama, call it what you will. Isak has been very clear. He doesn't see himself ever playing for Newcastle United again. He's been training in some cases in foreign countries. He was in Spain, at Real Sociedad's facilities training by himself, right, for about a week there. Then he, came back to the Northwest. Uh, it's a standoff. He wants to come to Liverpool and he does not want to play for Newcastle. And apparently this saga has been brewing. Supposedly, and this is why I don't understand. I'm going to say this now, and look, I have a lot of respect for Newcastle as a club. Right, as someone who came up watching the English game in the late '90s, obviously Alan Shearer, the Kevin Keegan teams, those fucking kits with the old Newcastle Brown sponsorship, like that's the only non-Liverpool English club kit that I would buy and rock. Uh, I have a lot of respect for Newcastle. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances who are Newcastle fans. They're lovely people. but there's some Newcastle fans just need to freaking chill. Right, because and then they're attacking their own journalists for reporting the truth now, which is nuts to me. Alexander Isak, reportedly, and this is not coming from our people, this is coming from the Newcastle journalists. This time last year, approached the club with, "Hey, I'm underpaid. Can we do some? We finagle the contract?" And he also asked the board bluntly, "Hey, where is this project at? Are we going to get some like incomings? Are we going to strengthen the squad? Because I want to win big things." He was told by the board, and more about Newcastle's board in a moment. No, we have no interest in renegotiating your contract or giving you a raise or an extension. And you're just a player. Why are you asking us about, incomings and ambition? Go do your thing. He was essentially told, go F off. He didn't make a fuss about it though. He had a brilliant season last year and you won them their first trophy, in eons. But at the end of the season, apparently in early May, he went back to the board and said, "Hey guys, I don't want to be here no more. Find a way to get me out of this situation." So sorry about that, gang. Momentary emergency. Well, not really emergency. I had to do something, but we're good. We're back. We're talking about Isak. Yeah, he told the board 3 months ago, or what qualifies as a board. I want out, and that's why we've been trying to do this, and why we're at where we're at now. Uh I think he already would be a Liverpool player had Newcastle gotten some of their targets. And Ikatike, by the way, was, one of their targets. This has been a largely disastrous transfer window for Newcastle. Right. They did bring in, as I'm recording, apparently, Jacob Ramsey, from Aston Villa, which is a very good move. More about that in a second. Right. And they got Alanga, who had a good season at, Forest last year. But here's the thing. Newcastle starting 11 is one of the best. They can beat anybody in the league. They're serious. And I respect the hell out of that midfield. I mean, Gomes, Tonali. I was trying to blank on his name. And Joe Linton, who, failed striker turned elite midfield. But we saw this last year, and we saw this 2 years ago when they were in the Champions League. The squad depth isn't good. They need to bring in 4 or 5 players in order to compete on both fronts. Otherwise, this season's going to be a repeat of 2 years ago, where they get the Champions League, they're out of Europe by like Christmas, and they fall to seventh or eighth in the league because the squad just lacks quality of depth. And selling Isak and then using that money to reinvest, like what we did with Felipe Coutinho, more about that in a second, right, would make a hell of a lot of sense. But as this saga's gone on, I've done some digging. And look, I respect Eddie Howe. I respect Eddie Howe a lot. But at the moment, part of the reason why Newcastle can't bring these targets over the line is literally because they don't have a sporting director. If you go and look on their website, sporting director is vacant. There is no guy, which is kind of crazy because this is effectively a state-owned team, right? You think they'd have a sporting director. The closest thing they have to a sporting director is Eddie Howe's nephew. I'm going to repeat that. Uh, Eddie Howe's nephew, Andy, is in charge of their recruitment. That's a problem. That in modern day football, that's a problem. Big problem. right? So I think that partially explains a lot of this. The other part of it is, look, Newcastle are at a place kind of like where Liverpool was 2016, 2017, 2017, 2018, where you have some really good players. You have very good starting 11. Like Klopp's second season or first full season at Liverpool, we had a very good starting 11. But then if one or two guys gets hurt, it's problems, right? Like, uh, you know, we had a situation where like if one of Emre Can or Jordan Henderson got injured, you were looking at what was that Brazilian guy that we had? Lucas. Lucas would show up, right? Like the gap in quality from the starters to the bench was vast. But we had Felipe Coutinho. And yeah, we tried to keep him. We wanted that fab, quote unquote, Fab Four. But ultimately, we sold him and then we used that money to reinvest. We weren't the most attractive. I mean, Clavin Club helped. We weren't necessarily the most attractive club on the planet. Now there was Newcastle, right? Because, Champions League wasn't guaranteed. But then we sold our star and we took that money and we reinvested because you know how you can get players in the door, even if it may not be the most attractive situation? Money, straight. If I can allow Randy Moss, let me quote Randy Moss, straight cash home. I don't, I don't understand. I mean, part of it is they're waiting on someone to come in. And it looks like it's probably going to be Wisa from Brentford because it's funny, he's doing the same thing Isak is, refusing to train, says, I'm done with Brentford. And they're not getting the smoke. I think it's because it's Isak. He's the second best striker in the league. I think you can say that. I mean, Holland is still the gold standard. Silas the Norwegian Albino is still the gold standard. But like, he's doing the same thing. I think once they get their replacement through the door, if they can get their replacement through the door, I think we move. And I don't think it's going to be 150 because this is what clubs do. They quote a price, and then more often than not, the actual price is somewhere in the middle. We went in apparently with $110 million bid that got rejected. Do I think we're going to give Newcastle 150? No. I think this gets done for somewhere between 125 and 135, maybe 130 with easily obtainable add-ons. But again, it's predicated on them bringing someone through the door. And to be honest, I don't know if I have faith in that really because you don't like Klopp's last season. We effectively didn't have a sporting director. We had some random German guy who we had beers with. That was a sporting director of Wolfsburg like a decade earlier, but was just chilling. We found some random German guy but at least we had one. Newcastle doesn't have one, and it looks like the manager's nephew, who I never heard of until I was like, wait a minute, well, who's in charge of recruitment? And then it was like Andy Howe. And I'm like, that's funny. He's got the same last name as the manager. And then I looked and I was like, oh, there's a reason. He's his nephew. That's a bad situation. So I have no idea. This will get resolved. Because here's the thing. I have been I feel for you Newcastle fans because I've been here before. I've been here with frickin' Suarez. I've been here with frickin', Xabi Alonso. I've been here with Raheem Sterling, which this is mad Raheem Sterling vibes. I've been here with Coutinho. Get it. Once a player wants to leave, you can't like change. It's like if the manager loses his dressing room, you have to fire the manager because there's no way in getting dressing room back. We have reached that moment of no return. So he's going to be a Liverpool player sometime in the next 6 months or 4 months. This either gets resolved in the next 2 weeks, or we're going to see a picture in like the end of December, early January, with Isak posing with a Liverpool kid in front of a Christmas tree. It will happen in January. This will happen. Uh, it's just a matter of when, not if. Because at this point, he can't go back to Newcastle. And like I said, it look, obviously, as a Liverpool fan, I want this to happen. because my club is the beneficiary, just like Man City fans wanted the Raheem Sterling thing to happen, just like Barcelona fans. Well, that didn't really work out so well for them. Wanted the Felipe Coutinho thing to happen, but if you're if you're Newcastle, if you can get a fee close to what you want, again, I think it's going to be around 135 if I was to guess. You could take that money immediately and restock your squad because look, they're going to need a new goalkeeper, Nick Pope, a new goalkeeper because Nick Pope's getting old. Excuse me. And like I said, I love their midfield, but if one of those guys gets hurt, you're looking at Lewis Miley or Joe Willock. Like that's what you're looking at. So we'll see what happens there. That's really all we need to talk about in terms of transfers. Again, I wouldn't mind if we brought in a defensive minded midfielder, but considering how much business we've done already, I'm willing to ride it out with what we got, especially with the way that Sabazala is being used now. Right, that's another piece to that puzzle. I think that's something that happens probably not in January, probably next summer, right? Because we're it's a good segue. We're the favorites. We are the favorites to repeat as champions, I would argue. And I also think we win something else this year. Am I saying the Champions League? No. Am I saying the FA Cup? No. Our cup, which then kind of became Man City's cup. I think we can win two trophies this year. I do. I'll say that with chest. Are we a perfect team? No. We got flaws. I've mentioned some of them. You know, Brandon Birch gets hurt, I think we can survive, but it'd be nice to have like an actual defensive midfielder. The winger such as the wing forward, winger situation. Another senior body would help. I mean, I like this 16-year-old kid, but he's a 16-year-old kid. And right, I was saying about the defense, like center back is until Gahey actually signs, I'm nervous there. Right. And again, a little bit with the Isak thing, I'm confident Isak is coming. But the moment I mean, it's Ikatike and probably Jaden Dans, right? I guess Verts could play there like as a full-on false nine if worse came to worse, but like we need another striker. But if I look at the teams, and we sort of talked about this on the longer format podcast, so I'm not going to go into the details. But if I look at the teams that are seriously chasing us, and there's three, our warts are not as grimy and pussy as their warts. I love what Chelsea's done this summer, but I still think they're a center back, particularly now with Colwell, long-term injury. They're a center back and a goalkeeper, maybe two goalkeepers, because I mean, Robert Sanchez is the reason why they won't win the league. But that's a major issue. Uh, City, I don't think their defense is very good. They're going to score mad goals. If they get Rodrigo, I'll probably change. I haven't officially said anything yet, but I'll probably change my picks for who I think will finish second. But I look at that defense and I'm like, dang good. They're not good. And that I think that's going to be their issue. They're going to beat the teams they should beat, but you're going to see draws and you're going to see L's, losses against like the top 10 clubs because they can get carved open. Right. And if you do, it should be noted, if you cut off the supply to the albino, they do have problems scoring. But if they get Rodrigo, that changes things. Right. And then Arsenal, look, great. You signed Victor Gyökeres. You did address your biggest need. They signed some good midfielders. But I look at that midfield and I see Odegaard and then a bunch of the same dudes of varying quality. They need another creative midfielder because if Odegaard just isn't playing well or he gets hurt, they can't score goals. They can't score goals. Like they best hope that, Tottenham doesn't get Eze because it looks like they need Eze, not Tottenham. And right, there's still the we'll leave the mentality stuff to the side. I think that might be broken too, but I'm not in their dressing room. I don't know. Uh right, I'm not going to speculate on that, but finishing second place three times in a row does kind of take its toll, and you do kind of wonder if this is getting going stale or not. I'm not going to speculate on that. I think we're a senior wing forward short. I know Arsenal is because here's the deal: Midweke is a good signing, and I think he's very good cover for Saka. But what about that left side? Because that left side was dog shit last year. Abject dog shit. I have no idea what happened to Martinelli. I used to sing his praises. He's not that guy. He hasn't been that guy for about a season and a half. And Trossard, like he's a one-trick pony. Like Arsenal should be in on Rodrigo, not City. That's all I'm saying. So we're the favorites to win the league. Am I going to say we are going to win the league? No, but kind of yes. I think it. I think we are not a complete team, but our issues are not as great as the other three chasers' issues. As I speak today, but again, things can change, injuries, etc. Signing incomings. So my pick to win the league is that we repeat, and I think we win another trophy. What that trophy is, I don't know. Right. It's definitely not going to be the big dinner plate. We flushed that on down the toilet. But in a way, I'm kind of happy about that because there is some weird community shield curse. If you look at the teams that have won that trophy, including us, over the last 7 or 8 seasons, the team that wins the Community Shield very rarely wins the league. I think it's only happened once in the last 8 seasons. So in a way, I'm kind of calm. And it's like, okay, well, we had some issues. This one really didn't count. So good. We got that out of our system. That's all I really have to say, guys. Look out for more content because with the rebrand we're going to be pumping out more content, and right, I'm going to be back on a solo operation for the decoloniz next episode in the decolonization series, which is going to be all about Vietnamese football. Right, sometime in the next month or so. I'll also probably be providing an Eastern Europe report once we know where certain Eastern European teams fall in the various European competitions. Anyway, gang, this is Professor Matt for the Too Many Guys Sports Channel, and enjoy the opening slate of matches. Peace.